After September of 2008, when we nearly went into a financial death spiral, and the cooperation of an outgoing Republican administration with the incoming Democratic administration, the two of them working together to reverse that death spiral. Now, CBO's report last week shed some new light on the long-term budget challenge. Under their estimates, if we continue on our current path without letting current law come into effect, gross federal debt is expected to reach 103% of GDP this year and will then rise to 120% of GDP by 2022. As for the economy, it's clear that we've come a long way from the depths of 2008 and 2009, and the recovery has recently shown these signs of the upward trend of strengthening. But it's a long and difficult road back. This is a frustratingly slow pace of the recovery. Economists have testified here that they found that recessions caused by or accompanied by a severe financial crisis like we've had, and in particular, a crisis steeped in the housing sector, which is ours, tend to last longer and require a greater amount of recovery efforts than typical recessions. And so, I think not only that this chart has shown the positive signs that we're seeing, we are also seeing the unemployment rate coming down. We've seen 10 consecutive quarters of real GDP growth. Consumer confidence is showing signs of improvement. U.S. auto manufacturers are returning to profitability, and state revenues are showing signs of improvement. It's amazing to me how a 2-minute commercial during the Super Bowl can generate such political controversy when it is, in fact, celebrating the fact of the recovery of Detroit and the auto manufacturers. So in all of these good signs, we can't become complacent. There's serious risk. Certainly, unemployment remains too high. Housing continues to pose a threat, and time after time on things that have been tried, they've only been partially successful at best. Too many homes are still in foreclosure or underwater. Obviously, the political deadlock that we have here that many of us on this dais have tried to break by coming together in a bipartisan approach, in what a lot of us urged the super committee to do. And by the way, Senator Sessions, there was a budget act, and that was in the Budget Control Act, and that set the course for 10 years of caps and had a disciplined process, which was the super committee, which we had desperately hoped would work. But the deadlock was there. There's an imbalance of budget cuts that could be a drag on this economy. And then, of course, the situation in the Middle East could result in a disruption of oil supplies, the European debt and fiscal crisis. And all of these elements are uncertain elements that could disrupt the recovery. Two of the most important steps that we could take to shore up the recovery would be to extend the payroll tax cut and the emergency unemployment benefits for the remainder of this year. And then, in the process, seriously move to redo the tax code and to reform this bloated tax code. And we should also reconsider efforts to rebuild the country's infrastructure. And so, Mr. Chairman Bernanke, in looking forward, it's clear that we have to pursue policies that both strengthen the near-term economic recovery and address the long-term fiscal imbalance. These policies are not incompatible. In fact, the CBO director who testified here last week, this is what he said, and I quote, "A policy that widened the deficit for a few years would be beneficial for the economy over that period, especially if we were combined with a plan that would later narrow deficits relative to the current policy projection." Combining those pieces is important. Having those pieces together would provide the strongest boost to economic activity in the short term. That's the CBO Director Elmendorf's words.